The Black Smugglers of the Sky. The winter of 1929 was especially cruel in Chicago. Wind tore through the alleys like a debt collector from hell, howling between brick walls and rattling the windows of shuttered storefronts. During Prohibition, the city was famous for two things: bootleg liquor and bloodstains the snow could never quite hide. Johnny Red Malloy wasn't a big name, not a boss, not a strategist, just a driver. He moved trucks full of whiskey from one hidden warehouse to another. Most shipments ended up in the hands of Capone's men. Johnny didn't ask questions. Questions were expensive in Chicago. But that night, he wasn't hauling liquor. The job came from a pale man named Mr. Doyle. No one knew exactly what he did, only that people stepped aside when he entered a room. He wore no gun, yet he seemed more dangerous than the men who did. "Take the crate to the old farm, outside the city," Doyle told him, "and don't open it." The crate was metal, too cold for ordinary steel. It seemed to hum faintly, even before Johnny loaded it onto the truck. At first he blamed the engine's vibration, but when he stopped at a red light and killed the motor, the humming continued, slow, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. The farm stood beyond the city limits, surrounded by frozen cornfields and fog. In the Prohibition years, plenty of places like it hid illegal stills, but there was no sour mash smell here. The air tasted metallic, like blood. Johnny parked near the collapsing barn and saw three men standing in the mist. Long coats, hats pulled low, their faces were shadowed. He didn't recognize them, and that unsettled him more than if he had. One gestured for him to set the crate down. When Johnny lowered it to the ground, the humming intensified. Doyle stepped forward from the darkness. "Do you know why you're here?" Doyle asked softly. "No, and I don't want to," Johnny replied, though his voice betrayed him. Doyle smiled faintly. "The boss has found a new supplier, one that doesn't take a cut, doesn't betray us, doesn't fear the law." The sky above the barn began to vibrate. Johnny looked up. The clouds twisted as if stirred by an invisible hand. The moon dimmed, replaced by a sickly green glow. Something circular formed overhead. It wasn't an airplane. Johnny had seen planes before. This thing made no engine noise. It simply hovered, and yet the earth trembled beneath it. The crate split open. Inside was no liquor. Instead, a smooth black object rested in the center, like a perfectly carved obsidian egg. Light pulsed within it, in the same rhythm Johnny had heard all night. The three men removed their hats, not in respect, but in fear. The object rose into the air. The barn's wooden beams began to crack as green light washed over the field. Johnny tried to step back. His legs refused. The surface of the black egg fractured. No flesh spilled out. No blood, only starlight, cold, blinding, alive. Something moved within it, a shape without a shape, not human, yet aware. A voice spoke inside Johnny's mind. Not English, not any language, but he understood. Exchange. Doyle fell to his knees. "For liquor, we give information," he whispered. "Routes, ports, police raids, everything." Johnny's heart pounded. Capone hadn't just bribed cops. He had struck a bargain with something far older and far stranger. Thin black tendrils emerged from the glowing fracture. They did not grasp, they measured. One of the men screamed as a tendril brushed him. He did not explode. He did not burn. He simply became transparent, like mist in sunlight. The voice returned. "One soul, one route. Doyle looked at Johnny. "We need a new driver on the other side." Johnny tried to shout, but his throat locked. The green light enveloped him. Suddenly, he saw Chicago from above. Every speakeasy, every hidden still, every patrol route the police would take days before they took it. He saw more than the city. He saw other places, other worlds. Paths that ran not across land or sea, but through darkness, between stars. The being drifted closer. A freezing sensation crept through Johnny's skin, as if something ancient were reading him, his lies, his fears, and his ambition. Johnny had always wanted more than to be another man's shadow. "What happens if I refuse?" he whispered. The answer was not words, but an image, an endless fall into blackness. Doyle stood. "No one refuses, not even the boss." A tendril touched Johnny's chest. The world split open. The next morning, the farm stood empty. The barn had collapsed inward. There were no tire tracks in the snow, no footprints, no crate. In the city, however, strange things began to happen. Capone's men were always one step ahead of the police. New smuggling routes appeared from nowhere. Rival gangs met accidents so improbable they felt scripted. And drivers disappeared. Rumors spread of investors from the sky, but no one spoke Johnny Malloy's name again. Only sometimes, when a faint green shimmer flickered above Chicago, a few swore they saw a silhouette drifting in the clouds. A man in a hat, still driving, just not in this world anymore.